Now here we have the bottom section of number 4. The easiest way to fit this is to put the base section down first and then to fit the mast. I showed the mast fitment earlier on simply so you could see where it went, but in practice it's easier to fit the mast after the bottom section of the plant is in position. So if my beautiful assistant hands me the mast, that's the mast in position. When the two parts of the pod go together, there are seatbelt straps which come down from the upper section, and on each side there is a gravity gate here and a hook here. The belt comes down through this gate and hooks on to that hook there, and the same on the other side. Once the two halves are together, the lower jaw hooks onto the upper jaw with elastic loops, one each side, and the gauze at the back of the throat hooks onto these hooks down here, again there's one each side, and the entire manipulation of the plant is achieved through these two handles here and here, and we'll demonstrate the movement of that later on. The top section of the plant is lifted into position and a socket connects with the top of the mast. Now this part of the puppet is top heavy and needs to be stabilised whilst the rest of it is fitted. So now I'm moving inside to then attach the lower section as previously described. That's one side. Again, with 2 or 3 stage hands, this fairly complicated part of the arrangement is achieved with ease. So there the lower half is connected securely to the upper half. Now the bottom jaw buttoned onto the top jaw, and the lower section of the gauze hooked onto the hooks. And that is the pod in one piece. To improve the manoeuvrability of the puppet, 2 counterweights are added. Each of these is 10 kilos. These attach in the same fashion as the top section with these metal loops over solid metal hooks. This then helps balance the entire pod. These are hidden from sight with this bag connected to the top pod, and this is held in position with elasticated loops which hook around the leaf mounts. In the same fashion as number 3, number 4 has the 3 ear leaves, as we call them, and they slot into position in the same fashion as the number 3 plant. These are coded A and B, and again they slide in exactly the same way as number 3. Now again, they can be left off, but they are calibrated as part of the counterweighting system for the entire puppet, so it makes it a whole lot easier for everybody if they're in position. Once they're in position, the stem can be fixed to the planter. This is achieved with 9 hooks, which are cunningly disguised, and can be a little tricky to find. But once they're located and fitted, the finished illusion of the plant growing out of the planter rather than just simply sitting on it is greatly improved. And with the foliage performers laying down on each shoulder of the planter, the entire illusion takes place. And now the entire pod is attached to the planter, so as it moves, the stem remains fixed. As with number 3 plant, the back of the throat is a gauze, and as number 4 has to eat people, this is achieved through a trapdoor featured under this leaf. The leaf goes all the way down to the ramp, and as it drops away you see an aluminium pole, and the performer must travel underneath that pole rather than over it. Once they're underneath that, they then engage with the ramp in the planter and exit through the rear. Now, with the puppeteer firmly fitted into the plant, this is best achieved when the 2 parts of the plant are put together and you sort of encapsulate the puppeteer in at the same time. It saves a lot of time and effort trying to get somebody in afterwards. Once they're in the plant, there are gauze windows which let in light. They can then seize control of the pod by taking hold of the 2 wooden handles. They can open the mouth by lifting the handles up and down in this fashion, or they can achieve the same sort of result, which also elevates the pod, the top pod. The entire plant can now be rotated simply by rotating the torso in all of this degree of rotation. At the same time, pushing down or pushing away, the mouth can be operated, which really brings the plant to life. For a little added extra, if you are dexterous enough, there is also a lever inside the upper pod which pulls the top jaw up out of the way in a similar fashion to number 3, but done manually. It's quite fiddly, but it can be done. It's not necessary to be used, but it's there as an extra. And also, if the pod is eating somebody, then it's possible for this to be manipulated to look like chewing action. And that's the full rotation and manipulation of number 4 plant. We'll now add foliage elements from number 3 with extra parts added to demonstrate the pod in its entirety in its full dressed state. Here we have my glamorous assistant wearing the winter outfit of the full camouflage suit. It does up down the back and includes this gauze hood, which makes everything far more attractive. The foliage performer then lays on the planter and occupies the diagonal. Onto them, the extra elements can be added. Each suit has a clip, again marked A and B, and the 2 new elements hook onto those with elastic loops. One of these elements fits onto the performer's left leg and the other onto their right arm. So if you hand me your hand, this is applied through a slot here, and then they simply hold on to the leaf. In the same fashion as the foliage on number 3, this leaf is attached to their foot. The A and B elements from number 3 are then clipped to the clip and fitted to the performer's leg as before. And finally, this loose leaf goes onto their remaining arm and is held in position in the same fashion as the other leaf. So now here I am dressed in the foliage components as well. Here you can see the individual leaf, as I explained earlier on, and the extra tendril, and the plant 3 element, and the new number 4 element. So if I lay down into position, the 2 plant elements can then come to life and work independently of the main pod, and with the pod manipulation as well, the whole effect becomes apparent. So here we've replaced fresh air with the foliage performers to demonstrate the being eaten element of the puppet. I shall be volunteering myself to the plant, so it may be a little bit noisy on the microphone. So the mouth can open, so it's nice and menacing. Mushnik or Audrey or whoever can then lean in, and as this happens, the plant needs to pull back slightly so it's balanced over the planter. This will automatically lower the top section of the pod, and then the puppeteer, as the performer is being eaten, can then lightly push up on the rear of the top pod, which then closes the mouth further. They come out at the back. With all 3 elements, the puppeteer in the pod and the 2 foliage performers, the whole plant can come to life. And again, move in sync to the songs